All right, well, welcome everyone. Go ahead and share the slide here. So, welcome to, man, what is it, Wednesday? These days get mixed together. So today, right now we have Scott Robert Lim, sponsored by Sony, and then at 1 o'clock Mountain Daylight Time, we have Jonathan Thorpe from Tamaron. So we have a great day scheduled for us. Again, a huge thanks to the corporate sponsors who have made this possible, who have given so much, especially at a time when things are rough for a lot of people. Again, just a reminder that John Scott from Roberts is going to be on the chat for any technical questions. So we appreciate him being here for that. And then right now we'll have Scott present to us. So he's a Sony Artisan and International Master Photographer. Scott Robert Lim is a certified educator and has over 70 international awards to his name, including Top 10 Most Influential Kodak Award, World's Top Wedding Photographers, and has been a judge at many international photography competitions. His work has been published and viewed by thousands all over the world and is a popular speaker around the world. For the last decade, he has dedicated his career to developing world-class photographers and loves teaching photographers at all levels. He has an energetic, charismatic speaking style and is an industry leader in photography education. And Scott, we are really excited to have you with us and look forward to seeing your creative work and what you have to offer to the group. So go ahead and take it away.
Well, thank you for having me. Let me see how I can, I accidentally, shoot, sorry. I accidentally turned Siri on. I want to get to the screen share portion. And, I feel real honored to be here. I saw your list of speakers and I'm like, dang, I wonder if I can, hold my own water here. So this is great. I know you guys are professionals, which is great. And wait, let me turn off sorry, hold it 1 second. You guys hear something weird? I accidentally pushed a button and my Siri came on. So I tried to turn it off, but if you hear anything, just let me know. Jump right in, Nate. But I'm so awesome that I'm speaking to professionals and people who are, more advanced. A lot of times this industry has changed and a lot of us speakers just speak to hobbyists. And so we can't really get into technical things that much when you're speaking for an hour or so, but feel free to ask any questions. You can see my portfolio. I put it in the chat. If you want to look at any pictures and ask me about any of those pictures, then feel free to do that. My portfolio is right there. You can catch me on facebook.com/Scott Robert Lim or on IG, Instagram at Scott Robert Lim. I'm not as active on Instagram. I'm more active on Facebook the way I post, but you can get me there. And what am I? What do I do? I specialize on on-location portraits. And I'm pretty much a master at small, portable light, shooting everywhere, anywhere in the world and getting off a shot in a couple minutes. And so that's what, being trained as a wedding photographer the first 10 years of my career. And then the last 10, I've been teaching. So I've been in this industry for about 20 years now. And that's what I really love doing. I have a passion about. I love the challenge. Go out there, find your shot, try to do it quickly before the cops, shut you down. And I love doing that stuff. And I love the challenge of it. So I'm going to start a little bit just about the 3 lighting situations. And I have to kind of get into the Sunny 16 rule a little bit. And I wasn't sure where your level was, but it seems like you probably guys already know that. But when they say Sunny 16, what somebody did was, hey, let's measure the sun hitting the earth when it's the brightest. And if we can figure out that setting when the sun is the brightest, then we can figure everything else out from there. And so in the old days, they didn't have meters. They just had to look in your environment and figure out what the exposure is. And you still can do that today. And so I'm going to kind of go over a little bit of it real fast. So the first situation is F16, of course. And what does that look like? Super bright sun, and you see very sharp shadows on the ground. Okay, and so F16 refers really a lot of times to the strength of the light. So when a photographer is talking, I'm like, oh, yeah, I shot that at F8 or I shot that at F16. They're not saying that they used F16 as their f-stop, but a lot of times it is just that strength of light. So you could be at F2, and so that equivalent exposure is still at 6400 of a second. And so basically how you do it is if you match your ISO with your shutter speed, you can set it to these f-stops under these situations and you will get the correct exposure. So 1/2 the light of F16 is F11. And what does that look like? Well, the shadows look a little bit softer. And why would that happen? Well, maybe the sun is kind of poking through some haze, or it's a little bit lower and it's going through some trees or something like that. And so that sun is kind of being diffused a bit. And that's why you're going to get that. So F11, those are those settings there. If you're shooting at F2, that'd be equivalent of shooting at 3200th of a second. F8 means overcast. You don't really see any shadows at all. And oh, by the way, that's half the light of F11 is F8. And slight shadows, and it's basically very even light. And those are your settings there. F5.6 is if you're in the shade and it's a pretty bright day outside, but you happen to be in the shade, then you would be at F6. If you're in the dark shade, you're at F4. Let's say maybe there's some cloud coverage a bit and it's a little bit darker in the shade. That would be that situation. Then when you're at 2.8, you're getting into the twilight area and it's very, very, very dark shade. And those would be the settings there. And then when you're at F2, you're pretty much at nighttime using city lights, of course, because if there's no lights around, you'd be in complete darkness. But basically, this is right there, right when that sun goes below the horizon, you're gonna, right in that area, you're gonna hang in that area. And so that would be something like you'd be at F2 there. Okay, so what are the 3 different lighting situations? Let's talk about that. One, this is the most difficult lighting situation to shoot in because you have bright light, harsh shadows, strong shadows, very difficult at times. This is a situation where the lighting is kind of flat and a lot of times it's boring, but you can get awesome compositions because you can shoot in any direction and not have any highlights blown out and there's no shadows. And then this last situation is a very small amount of light needed. And sometimes if you're going to use your flash or small portable strobe, that could be too strong in certain situations to use at that time. So what do I use for these 3 different situations? At this top area here, I use mostly flash or reflector, of course. I don't use a reflector as much, but I like to teach it because it's a low-cost $20 thing you can throw in your bag. And you can use video light with some of the newer generation lights out. You have to be at about 10,000, 8,000 lux, 10,000 lux. And I love lighting that I like using. There's one company, Stella Pro Lights. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they're pretty revolutionary in that their lights literally about this big that are battery operated. They put the Tesla batteries in them, so they're really well built, and they get up to 8,000 and 10,000 lumens on a portable battery. And I could literally shoot F16 with this light, and a lot of news teams like Fox and CNN and all that use these lights because they're so strong, and I use them for portraiture, especially if you're running video or if you want to shoot 10 frames per second or something. That's really the only light, portable light, that I know that will work in this type of situation. When I'm in this situation here, I mostly use flash and video light and sometimes reflector, but of course, if it's even lighting, you're not going to get much reflection. And so you're going to be limited at that. Now, here's my rule. When the sun goes below the horizon, bam, right to video light whenever I can. Because then you're in WYSIWYG situation. What you see is what you get, and you can be very, very creative with your lighting because you can see exactly what it's going to do for you. Sometimes I use a combo of both if I'm using video light on my main, and then flash a lot of times if I'm creating backlight or I'm gelling a background in my environment. I like to use flash at that point. So those are the three things that I use. Okay, good light. What do I look for? Some of these have pictures have something in common, and you can kind of see what they all have in common in regards to shooting on location. And of course, it's the catch light. And so for me, if a portrait doesn't have a catch light, it's not even, I don't even shoot it, really. I've always looked for great lighting. And I want to talk a little bit about what is exactly a catch light. What's the science behind a catch light? And so how you create a catch light is, it has to be a contrast of lighting. The subject has to be in a darker area than the source of light that they're looking at. And so if you want to create a great catch light, you have to create a contrast of lighting situation, finding darker areas in your environment. Maybe it's shade, maybe it's a tunnel, maybe it's a large opening or doorway, whatever it is. But if you're outside, that catch light is usually going to be a reflection by the sun, like a reflection on the ground or a reflection on a building, or the sky itself. If you're indoors, then you can create a catch light through a window and all that kind of stuff. But I'm just talking about outdoors here. So there must be a contrast of light, and large catch lights are created by large sources of light. So let's analyze this. So I love shooting this situation where the sun is very low because it'll give me two sources of light with one. Because when that sun goes lower, what happens is it creates more shade on the ground. And so when there's more shade on the ground, the subject is surrounded more by darkness. Because if the sun was high, the sun's going to bounce on the ground and reflect up, and you're not going to get that catch light. So if you want to create this awesome look, go to low sun time. When that sun is setting, you're going to get a rim light around the hair. And let's take a peek. Good thing I have a 42 megapixel camera. And let's actually see what's creating that catch light, okay? You can see me right in the middle right there. And basically, their eyes reflect what they're seeing. And you can see what is creating that catch light, the sky. So the sun is low, but it's still lighting up the sky in front of the subject and coming back and creating a great catch light. So that's the technique you can use when the sun is low. And here's a different one, right? I put my subject in a very large area of shade, but made sure that her eyes are looking out to the brighter sky. And of course, you can see me right in the middle there. Okay, now here's a little bit different situation where this little guy, I'm in Cuba here and I'm shooting on the street. And you can see in his eyes, what is that catch light? The catch light is the buildings across from him, across the street. And of course, you can see me in the middle. And the sun is shining on that building across the way, giving me that catch light. Okay, so great light is catch lights, and be obsessed with finding catch lights. Everywhere you go, you see a catch light in somebody's eyes, what's creating it, and everywhere you go, you need to know instantaneously, within seconds, where is it going to give you, where in your environment can you find a catch light? Okay, you have to know that within seconds, just looking around your environment. So basically, what do? You're looking for darker areas because you have to create a contrast of lighting. Okay, so let's get into my creative things. Now, one thing, when you're shooting in that very difficult, bright light, I have one rule when you shoot portraits: nose to the light, because your eye will go to what is brightest and what is sharpest immediately. And that's how you create impact with your photography. And if you follow this simple rule when taking a portrait, keeping the nose to the light, you will keep yourself out of trouble. So let's take a look at this next picture here. I'm in Hawaii and I'm shooting in this beautiful area, but the sun, it's like literally 2 p.m. in the afternoon, and the sun is poking through the trees, but it's extremely bright. So how am I going to pose this person? What am I going to do? Well, the first thing is like, okay, the light is from above. I have to put that nose up to the light, because what happens if she was looking at me at the camera? Do you see that shadow under her chin? That's what her face is going to look like. Right? And so it's going to take a lot of work, if I don't have my own lighting, to take that shadow out, and it's not going to look natural. And so when you're in the elements and you have to shoot in bright light, let's say you have to do this portrait, it's like super sunny out, you got no choice. You got to make sure that you get that nose to the light, or else you're going to have a very difficult time getting a nice portrait where you can see the face. And so in strong sunlight, you got to do this, okay? Nose to the light. Here's another situation in the same area, and I had this dancer, and she was dancing around, and you know, when she was looking down, or maybe she was looking to camera right, her face was in the complete shade. And so literally after 2 minutes of dancing, I said, stop. I can't have you dancing. I got to set this up. Can you give me a pose where you're feeling the sun right on your face? And so I had her do it that way. Bam, click, took the photo, not using any kind of external lighting, but you are in your environment shooting in a super bright light situation, able to knock off a shot by following that one rule: nose to the light. Another situation here, bright light. I'm in Paris at this point. It's, I think it's mid-afternoon, 2 p.m., 3 p.m., super bright light. And it's okay to have your subjects close their eyes if it's too bright. And so a lot of times I'll get them in that bright area. I'll say, hey, can you, and I'll ask the subject, and the subject will give you the perfect position of the light every time if you say this. If you say, listen, I want you to look up towards the sun, and I want you to feel that sun on your face, and feel and position it where you feel that sun the brightest. And they will move around their face, they'll reposition themselves, and they'll look at that sun, and they'll make sure that that sun is at the brightest point, because they can feel the heat, and they will give you the perfect position for that. Then you just start clicking away. You can have them close your eyes, or you can have them open it momentarily and take the shot. And I'll do that a lot. I'll say, hey, open on 3. 1, 2, 3, open, click, done. Okay, so that's one way what you can do. 2 is obviously through a reflector. And that's, I bring this up because you can keep it in your bag. They're only 20 bucks. You don't have to worry about if your batteries are charged with your flash. You can get it up and done very quickly. And you can see a reflector situation in your environment. So let's say you're shooting in a harsh environment and you're looking around. Look on the ground, and you can use the ground as reflectors. And so here's a situation in Cuba. We're shooting this ballerina, and we go, hey, let's do this right here. We've got some sun on the street. It's midday. It's terrible lighting. And I'm trying to find a shot in terrible lighting. And so you can see that beautiful uplight that's on her face. And then I have her pose. I notice that catch light, and I have her pose this way. And if you look at her eyes, what is creating that catch light? You can see there, good thing for my 42 megapixel camera. Thank you, Sony. And you can see it's the ground creating the catch light. Now, let's say you want to be creative and try something in the water. And you don't need to take your nice expensive camera out there. You could do what I do. Like right here, I take my iPhone and I have a waterproof case. You can buy those for $2 or $3. Well, depending on how much you spend, but you can get a plastic one for $2 or $3. If you want to go all out and spend $15 on a waterproof case for your iPhone, you can do that too. And then for lighting, what can you do? Hey, listen, don't take flashes with a battery pack out in the water. I'm just going to let you know that because I did get electrocuted one time. And I'm not going to do that again. I had a few flashes hooked up to an external battery pack, and one of the flashes started falling off my bracket. And we're so natural. We're just so trained to catch something as it's falling. I happened to catch it while it was hitting the water at the same time, and I felt this volt of electricity go through my body. I still, to this day, not sure if I got all the feeling in this thumb, but so don't do that. So I go, you know what? I'm not going to do that anymore. Let's be creative. Take your simple reflector with your iPhone, and hey, that's the shot I got. Okay, but be creative. You know, now you're not just stuck to the land. I can do something in the water. Let me try to do something, especially if the subject has anything to do with water or sports or whatever. Get out there, do something creative, and the iPhones are getting better. This was with the iPhone 5, okay? We're on iPhone 11 and Samsung, whatever, 10, 11. These phones, this technology is getting great now. So pretty soon, I don't know, we might not have a job pretty soon. Just kidding, we will, because they're not creative, they don't know things. Okay, so reflector right here again, bright light. I just had a huge, foil on a nice board, real fast and easy. You get the punch, you get the clarity, you get the colors, and it's very fast to do. Okay, reflector, there, that's it. Now let's talk about motion. So when you're doing a portrait session, you want to have a variety of feelings. And a lot of times motion is going to help you get a reaction. It has a dynamic flow to it. And there's a couple ways that you can create motion in your photos. One is that you could just throw something in the air, debris, leaves, whatever. Maybe your subject, their work has to deal with small things, throw them up in the air. Just do something creative with it. This was basically taken in, you can't use flash when you do this because the flash won't recycle fast enough. So in this case, I was shooting at 10 frames per second. And so and it was overcast. Okay. So I had to use my big boy Stella light with the 8,000 lumens with a Fresnel on it to get some light into my subject to open that up. Now, when you're in an overcast situation, you think, oh, everything is fine and dandy. I'm in overcast. I have even lighting. But if you go outside and it's overcast, the light comes from above. And so a lot of times you're still going to get that raccoon eyes. You're still going to get that shadow in the face because the light is from the top coming down. And so you need a little bit of something to get that light in there. And that's what I shot with that Stella light here. And here was my settings. And this is the light that I was using. I was shooting at 1.8 here with a 24 millimeter lens.
Hey, Scott, I got a quick question going back to the iPhone.
Yeah.
Lori's asking if you shoot with your iPhone for clients or just personal projects.
Well, that actually was a personal project, but I wouldn't have a problem using it. I mean, the quality of it was fine. I mean, I wouldn't, it also depends on if it's being printed or what the requirement of what that client wanted, but you could easily print this up large. There's like no hesitation at all. I mean, I've seen several award-winning shots be shot with the iPhone blown up huge, 20 by 30. It's like not a problem nowadays. And plus, with being able to res up with certain programs if you need to, it's really not a problem. As long as you have a nice composition, good lighting, And the thing with a smartphone is I wouldn't do it when you're in low light because the sensor size is so small on these things, it's going to be crappy in low light. But if you're in a sunny situation, you have plenty of light and you're outdoors, I wouldn't have a problem hesitating at all using the phone and having it for a client. But if it's low light, don't do it. And, you know, if you're at that third area that I talk about, the 3 lighting situations, if then you're in that third area, don't use your iPhone there. It's just not going to, the quality is not that good. But good question. Okay, so motion. Let's talk about motion a bit. Or is there any more before I go on? We're good?
Let's see. Evan asked, in your career, can you point to something that you consider your big break? I don't know if you'll get to that later.
Well, let's do that a little bit later. How's that? That's a good question. All right, so here's motion. It's a very dark overcast situation, so I was able to use a little video light. It was the same thing. It's overcast. It looks great. I want to create this motion effect, but the sun, there's some darkness over her face and in her lights, in the eye sockets. I had to light it, and plus I want to create a little highlight and contrast on the body. So I had to add a little video light there and to create this shot. And so you can see highlight and shadow on her body. You can see how that little light opened up her face so I could get a highlight and shadow look right under her chin. And you see that. And so it's very, when you're shooting portraits, it's very, so for me, lighting is not about good exposure. Lighting for me is about how it can create shadows, because photography is 2-dimensional. You're not going to see any type of shape or dimension without shadows. So I'm using my light to be able to create shadows, to give my subject depth and shape and texture. And so that's a lot of times when I'm using light, not just for a good exposure, but for that depth and that highlight and shadow.
Another couple questions, both about post-production. How much time do you spend on post-production? And then that was from Derek, and Chris is asking, and a couple others are asking about the rainbow you're adding. Is that in post, or what's your process there?
Yeah, this is actually a blended sky that I add just to give it a bit of color, because if you look at the other picture, and then this is a necessity, guys. If you really want to create great portraits and you want to have the most wow factor, you have to learn how to change skies because it's going to give you the most pop. And so my whole style, a lot of it is about lens flare, because I'm a lighting guy, backlight. And so you could, there's this program that you guys have to get. It's called Luminar. It's like a $69 program. In fact, you know what? They gave me a link. So you, for $69 or $79, you could get the program and you could get some skies added with it. You literally can replace skies in a few clicks. And there's a certain technique that I use it. What I do is I actually create, when I bring it into Luminar, I create another layer. And I add the sky on the upper layer, and I reduce the opacity on it, and I can change the focus on it depending on what kind of lens that I'm using, because you don't want to shoot shallow depth of field and then your sky be razor sharp. That's just not going to be believable. But a lot of times these programs, when they replace the sky, it looks a tad fake. Because what you need to do to make it look realistic is put the sky on another level, and then don't put it at 100% opacity. A lot of times I'll bring it down to 80 or 70 or blend it in with the original sky to really make it look good. And then I can control the focus on the second layer and then put them together. And so I do that. And so if you want to add skies real quickly, Luminar is great. Here I'm doing it manually because I want to have the sky also reflected in the water, because there's a lot of people go, well, I could tell that's fake because I don't see the reflection in the ocean. Okay, well, I'll show you. And so this, so I had to kind of put up the texture, flip it, and blur it out so it would be reflected in the water there. And then that little rainbow thing that's around it, that's also in exposure by alien skin, takes you 2 seconds to add lens flares and things like that, just to be creative with it. And so, listen, I'm a wedding photographer. There's some photos that I love just spending my time on because it's my art and I really want to make it great. And sometimes I'll spend even up to an hour of it. But if I'm doing a wedding and I've got like 200 photos that I got to get through, I'm not spending a lot of time on each one. Only kind of like my portfolio pictures, I want to make sure the skin is smooth. Everything looks awesome on it. So that's kind of like my workflow, depending on what I'm doing and what's it for. If it's my own enjoyment or for my own portfolio, then I'll spend more time. But if it's a client and they have a lot of photos and I need to get it out, then, you know, I don't spend a lot of time on it. And that's why I use those programs. So you can see the Stella Light here. I'm shooting a 24 millimeter 1.4 lens. And I'm using that Stella 1000. So that was only 1000 lumens. It has a burst of 2500 lumens for 45 seconds. And then it comes back down, but it gives you a really nice burst for 45 seconds. And usually I can take the portrait within that time. And so here I'm shooting 10 frames per second. What is the lighting situation here? I'm in that #2 area with the very dark overcast. So we're talking about motion, right? Creating something different, having that person like airlessness fall or jump in the air or whatever, just mixing up your portraiture, okay? Just not stagnant all the time. Here's something else, right? Guess what? I went to the dollar store. I bought these Las Vegas cards for $1. $1 for cards. I just have them as props. You know, I'm shooting with people. It gives people something to do. It's creating motion. It's fun. Look at the expressions on their faces doing this kind of stuff. You're getting them out of their element. See, that's the whole thing, is when you make somebody do something, they get out of their normal, like, I'm cool face look. Like they, you know, everybody knows their angle and the look where that they look good, and they usually give that to you and they won't do anything else for you. But if you get them moving and have some sort of motion or playful, they're going to give you a broad range of emotions that you can capture. I'm shooting at 800th of a second here. And just having fun. Of course, I can't use flash because it won't recycle at 10 frames per second. So here I have to use a reflector. That was my setup there. Okay, no flash. And then usually at the end of whatever they're doing, they're gonna give you a really nice, intimate picture. And motion equals emotion. Remember that. Motion equals emotion. And let me give you another example of this. So here we are now walking the streets. I'm going to have them kind of run across the street as the light turns green. I'm in my little town of Monrovia. And so we got this set up, and I just have them, look at the emotion. I've got them moving, okay? And you're getting this kind of just things that you would normally never get, but it adds to the portfolio. Yeah, guess what? It's a little bit out of focus. Fine, right? I'm shooting at 10 frames per second, but the main thing is you're capturing the emotion and the overall feeling of something, right? The best shot is often after they do something silly. Okay, and so you have them do something silly, it's kind of finished, then you get the best shot. A lot of times when I'm doing a bride and groom, I'd have them hold hands, I have them do the same thing, and then in the middle, I'll surprise them and I'll say, okay, kiss. Have you ever tried kissing somebody while you're on the run? You can't do it. So they try kissing and it doesn't work. They start hilariously laughing, and that's the shot. Okay, so just remember that. Get them going and then keep shooting through the whole process, because afterwards you're going to get a good shot. What was my lighting setup here? Okay, I had a challenge on this particular video I was shooting. My whole video, which will be released pretty soon, it's going to be for free. It's like an hour video. I'm using all dollar store items to take photos. And so here, was this little beauty light I found at the 99-cent store for $3.99. And I had two of them. And I had two assistants with me. And the reason why that this lighting was so even across the whole entire way with motion, you can't do this on a light stand, right? I just told my assistants to keep at the same distance to my subjects as they're moving. So I will have perfect lighting throughout the whole course when they're running. And so that's why I'm a huge proponent. If you're going to get into portraiture and you're going to do lighting, a stand is just clunky, it's inefficient, and you can't get your shots fast enough. So I highly recommend getting somebody to hold your light because you could reposition it better. So here's the thing. When you have your lighting on a stand, you might set it up and you go, oh, that looks pretty good. But if I had that light a little bit higher and over to the right, it'd probably look better. But do I want to run back and forth and tinker with it and set it up? No, I don't have time to do it. So consequently, what? Consequently, you don't do it. So therefore, what did you do? You just sacrificed your vision because you know what looks better, but you can't do it because of the situation that you're in and if you're shooting on location. But if I have an assistant, I go, oh, just a little bit higher, move it over to the left, move it to the right, boom, boom, boom. I get my shot. I get the lighting exactly how I want it to be. Okay. All right. So
another question real quick.
Sure.
Let's see. Jeffrey was asking about the sharpness of your images from front to back, or he says it seems so sharp from front to back.
Not there.
He's asking, where do you focus?
I just let the camera do its work. I think somebody wrote on the screen by accident. Those red lines are there. I'm not sure. I don't think that was me.
Yeah, if somebody wrote on the screen, make sure to take that annotation off. You go up.
Thank you. So basically, when you're shooting with a wide angle lens, there's something called the depth of field triangle. Actually, I trademarked that term because I started talking about this concept of depth of field being a combination of your millimeter of your lens. The wider the lens, the more depth of field you're going to have. The distance, the more distance you have between you and the subject, the more depth of field you're going to have, or the less if you shorten it. And of course, the f-stop. Most people think of it just as the f-stop. And so you go, wait a second, you're shooting at f4, but there's two other ways to control your depth of field. So I see how the background is blurred out right here. I like that. I want that. And so and I'm about 5 feet away from my subjects or more. Well, this I'm pretty close. Well, I cropped it in a bit actually. And so I know that if I'm wide and I'm back 5 feet or more, I'm going to get a decent amount of depth of field even at 1.4. And if you look at my camera settings here, I am at 3200 ISO at f1.4. If I want to shoot at 5.6, folks, and I'm doing action. So does my shutter have to be up there? Right? And so if you're running or moving in general, what's the rule on shutter speed? About 500th of a second at least, right? And so I go, okay, well, I don't care if it's slightly blurry because it's not one of those shots. So I got to be about 400 and I'm already 1.4 at 3200, right? And so if I move that to even 2.8 or f4, I'm going to slam that ISO to 12,000, which it probably can handle, but I don't feel comfortable shooting at 12,000 ISO all the time. Once in a while I can. And so that's the reasoning for my f-stop.
Another question.
Sure.
Sorry, from Jason. He's asking what is your approach with less experienced models? How do you work with stiff subjects that aren't comfortable in front of the camera?
This is it. Get them moving. Right. So even here's the key. Here's what makes a photo stiff on a portrait. Their weight is being distributed equally on both legs, right? So if you imagine yourself standing up, putting both your weight on both legs, stiffness, but that's what everybody does because your mom always tells you, taking a picture, stand up straight. That's the exact opposite. So the reason why motion works is because when you're getting somebody to move, they're shifting their weight. That's what athletics is. Athletics is taking from one weight and then shifting it to the other side. And so if you think of portrait, one simple tip, now I can come back and I can speak 20 hours on posing if you want, but I can't do it here because we're down to, I don't know how many minutes, but here's one tip. Always make sure that the weight is all on one leg, shifted completely, and your subjects will look a little bit more comfortable and won't have, that's just one tip, but I always do that. Make sure that with that weight is shifted, and that's what motion does. It's a constant shift of weight. So it looks that, so look at these girls, how I have them pose. Now, you can go look at my portfolio. I do not shoot supermodels. These are people that are friends of mine that wanna, I don't have huge budgets like, hey, can you come and, you know, shoot this session with me? These are all, I started out as a wedding photographer. Nobody knew how to pose. And so I had to break it down to the minute detail on everything to get the posing that I do. And so one of the keys is shifting the weight. Look how they're standing, both third legs, it's shifted. It's all on one leg, and that's gonna help you. Okay, is that good? Okay, shadows, moving on. I've got 6 of these little things, tips I wanna show you. And so hopefully we're pretty much on time here. Shadows. I love using shadows in my environment. And it just creates mystery. It creates interesting compositions. And you just place the eyes in the hot spot. And then you expose for that bright spot on the face. Because why? Your eye, when you take a photo and somebody's looking at your photo, your eye will go to what's brightest and what's sharpest. And so that's why when I shoot portraiture, I like using a shallow depth of lens, because if I blur the background out and I put proper light on my subject, it's gonna create the most impact. You're gonna see that person right away, boom, right? So, and then look, where's her nose? Her nose is towards the light. Look at her weight. Her weight is shifted on one leg. Boom, you're halfway there. You're halfway there. So the first thing is you gotta be light aware. And I know the subject's gonna change it for you and switch their face and whatever, but you have to be strict about it. Say, hey, keep your nose to that light. And so I will literally do lectures, and I will say nose to the light literally 100 times. We'll go out in field and take photos, and then they'll critique, or they'll come back and look at it and go, well, first of all, the nose wasn't to the light. Oh yeah, I forgot about that, right? Be always light aware, okay? All right, so here I am in Paris. I rented this huge chateau out. I found this beautiful shadow pattern, and I go, let's take a portrait over there. And so I just, nose to the light, body away, weight shift. Look at her. I had her lean against that and shift all her weight. Here's another key. When your subjects can't, because you know what the hardest pose is? To free form stand and pose. That is the hardest thing in the world to do. But if you have a problem subject, get them to lean on something, because then that they can shift their weight easily. You know, whether it's against a wall, they're leaning forward on a chair, or they're holding something or a post. If they're leaning on something, it's very easy for that person to shift the weight. And then I just follow my rules: nose to the light, body away, shift the weight, close your eyes, bam, click, 30 seconds, done. Okay. Here I saw these beautiful banyan trees in Hawaii, and she's looking through there, and it's like, you know, place that shadow. She had these gorgeous eyes, you know, and I just like, oh, I got to get that. And I just had her look through and create a little bit of shadow as she's looking through it. And it's the same area. I just had the couple there, and I saw the shadow there, right? And I placed them right where that brightest point is. And here I'm in Mexico shooting a wedding, and I saw this beautiful tree. What you don't know, that camera left is a huge window, but content aware took that window away, and with a little Photoshop took it away. But I had that in mind before I shot it. So a lot of times I have the post-processing in mind if I know if I can get rid of certain objects before I shoot the shot. And so I had this vision of this shot in my mind before I shot it, even though there was a huge window camera left. Here I just see some beautiful light coming through the window, and I just had my subject sit there, my bride. Here again, she's walking through the tree. Actually, this shot literally took like 5 seconds because we were actually walking to where she was going to walk down the aisle. But there was trees there, and the light was kind of and shining through it. And then she walked by a certain point, and it just looked beautiful in her eyes. I said, "Stop! Go back 2 feet." Then I just literally took, probably less than 30 seconds to rip this shot off and then continue walking. But I just love that shadow effect. You'll see shadows on the walls. Same thing, right? Weight shifted on one leg. The body is away from the direction of the face, nose to the light. This is I post-process it so it doesn't look like it, but it was super strong light at this time. Very strong light. And so I had to get that, because you could tell by the shadow on her face, it's fairly sharp. And so that nose is to the light. Her face is the brightest part of that image. Now imagine this, you see the light is coming in camera left. Let's say that nose wasn't towards the light and it was to the right. Her face would be in complete shadow and you would be unusable, not unless you want to spend hours in Photoshop to make it look natural. Here's in that same area, I took a very dramatic shot, getting that sun, nose to the light, weight shifted, posing, and that's where I was. But I had this vision in my mind. I want this film noir look because I saw the shadows on the ground, and I just got that shot. Here I'm walking up some stairs, and the sun was, sometimes when you go upstairs and they have that iron rod railing with kind of like this iron pattern that you can use as a stairway. It was it was City Hall in Pasadena. Actually, they film a lot there. And I noticed the sun going through that iron grid or gating on the handle, creating an awesome pattern. So I just took my subject and I just put them there. Here's another thing when you're taking portraits. And this is what people fall into a lot and don't do it. Always in your portraits, have the subject, of course, look at the camera, but always in your routine, have them not look at the camera. Because then when they're not looking at the camera, now the portrait is more of a story, right, than a portrait. Once that subject looks at the camera, it is now a portrait because they're camera aware. But when they look away from the camera, it's more photojournalistic, it's more story. So that's why you got to do both. You got to put yourself through a routine of things that you just do through everything. Look at the camera, don't look at the camera, look over my shoulder, over there, shoot it waist up, shoot it tight, headshot, shoot it shoot it full length. And just follow these routines that you do, create motion. And you just have a list of things and a routine that you do. You're going to make sure, even if you got 5 minutes, you're going to get a shot. And that's the world that I live in. I live in the 5-minute world or less to get things. Okay, now here, a lot of times when the light is bright, I'm in Jamaica here, and I'm shooting this person, and of course when that sun is bright, it could produce very, very sharp and contrasty shadows. And that's what the case was here. So how did I reduce those shadows down? Well, I took my flash and I fired it right at the shadows, not to take away the shadows, but to reduce them. And so that's like what I call using light on the backside. So you're using light to take away or minimize the shadows. And so I like this shot here because it was super strong, super contrasty because the sun was so bright, but I just took my flash and I fired it towards the shadow to reduce it. I did the same thing here where the shadows was producing some very strong shadows on her, and I just took my flash to kind of reduce them to create the look I did. So your lighting is not just about your main light. Your lighting, think of it as it could be secondary light to kind of fill in your shadows. And a lot of times I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna fight the sun. The sun is so freaking strong. I'm gonna let the sun be the main light. Your sun, I bow down to you. You are strong, okay, fine. I'm gonna use my flash to be my second light and control it that way. Okay, 4, colored light gels. And so if you want to get something creative, do some creative portraiture, I recommend this. And so here's this situation here. Now, how do you create a shot like this? Well, I'm going to tell you first of all, when you're going to do this type of shot, the best type of skin to use is not light skin complected people. Use dark complected people, or if you have a subject that's dark complected, the gels look amazing. It's just like gelling a background. When you gel a background, do you choose a white background to gel on? No, you choose something that's gray or neutral or black even looks good, because the dark color accepts the pigment and it makes it look great. And so how you do this shot is you have to know a little bit about lighting and portraiture, because this is what it is. The first color creates the highlight and it has to create a shadow. So look at the pink light that I'm using. That's my highlight, right? Now, if you turned off the blue light and you just used my pink light, those areas of blue are the shadow, okay? And then what happens is, so your first light, you need to create shadows on the face in order for this to work. If you don't create any shadows on the face, this technique won't work. So you put shadows with your first light, you create a shadow. So there was a shadow across her cheek there, okay, with that first light. And that shadow is filled in by the second color. And that's how you do it, okay? So it's very important to understand lighting and how to create a shadow and a highlight on your subject. Because if you don't know how to do that, then you won't be able to get this shot, because one color will negate the other color.
Couple questions. One, going back to your other
Sure.
on location, wondering about your fill flash. Does it work with high speed sync if you're using a wide aperture, or is that in post-production?
Yeah, you could use a high-speed sync flash, or you could use a manual flash. I just tend to use high-speed sync because it's easier. Yeah, but even if I shot this at whatever, or 16 or whatever, and I didn't use high-speed sync, I could still use my flash. The whole idea is just being able to reduce those shadows. And I did, in this particular photo, I did use high-speed sync.
And then I had a question going back to your gelled lights. When you're setting that up, do you work with one light at a time, or do you use modeling lights? What's your process?
Yeah. Well, you have to use one light. So I use, I highly recommend using constant light, because you can see the shadow and the way it's positioned. And so I use constant light here, and I'm going to have a whole behind the scenes and a little video to see. Oh no, I don't. Yeah, I have a behind the scenes picture, but another lighting I have a little video. But here, yeah, so I set up the one light, the main light. So here I would do the pink light first, and then I would make sure that I get shadow on her cheek side, on the shirt side shadow side, and then I know that's where to shine the blue light, wherever the shadow is. So you do your main light to create shadow on her face, and then you take your second light and you shine that where the shadow is. Does that make sense?
Great. Yep, absolutely. And then
Yeah.
another question from Fred. He's asking about when you're photographing people with less than ideal skin, do you still go a hard light?
I try to use soft light whenever I can, but you have to, if you're a portrait artist, you have to learn how to edit skin. I mean, you can't believe some of the skin you're going to see on some of my photos. It looks absolutely, it's a really difficult situation, but that's a skill that maybe that's one of the skills that you got down. It's like, I'm going to learn how to be a master at editing skin. Because once I did that, it opened up my whole portraiture world. Because if you're, I know this, because if you don't feel like you can edit skin that well, you're not going to take close-up shots. So once I learned and mastered that technique, my whole world opened up, regardless of what their skin looked like. I'm going to go in tight. They got bad skin, but their eyes are absolutely beautiful. Boom, get in there, right? And so you don't want to limit yourself. You want to be the complete photographer. And if it's skin smoothing that's holding you back, guess what? Get online on YouTube and you can learn how to do it. I'm actually going to be releasing a course, a 40 plus hour course on everything that I teach. And I think 12 hours of it is just on post-processing. And so I go into my techniques, and I don't have a lot of time. I don't use high frequency skin separating because it takes too long. I use a different method. I can't really get into that. Maybe if you guys have me there, I could talk about that too. Okay, so here's a second picture where I'm going crazy. It's like, you know, I'm at B&H here, and I'm doing a demonstration, and it's like, okay, let's go all out here. Let's do the 2 colors on them. Let's add another 3rd color, and let's put it in the back and create some awesome rim light. So what's the setup, right? So here's my settings of the camera. I'm at 1.8. 200. As you can see, I'm kind of in that 3rd lighting. When you're in that 3rd scenario, or you're indoors, when you're indoors, you can use constant light for everything. You don't even need a flash for indoor studio anymore. The lighting is so good. And so, because why? You could just make your environment dark, and then all you need is just a little bit of light. I do this demonstration where I use the world's smallest flash, and I send it through a double diffuse softbox and create the most beautiful light with the world's smallest flash. Because it's the quality of light that you need, and it's not the strength of light when you're indoors. You just need to learn how to create good quality light. Okay, and so there's kind of the setup there, right? I was like, got these lights. I'm like, hey, B&H, you got any gels around? Oh yeah, let me find some. Okay, here, use these, taping them on there, right? And just making it work. I love being a MacGyver. It's like, okay, what's around here? Oh, I got some duct tape, and I got this, and I got a microwave oven. I can make an atomic bomb. You know, I just love that feeling of going in somewhere and being creative. Okay, here's another shot with that session I just did to create this look. And so what was happening was there's this beautiful blue neon, and you can see the reflection in her glasses. Okay, so first of all, I spent 99 cents I was there at the dollar store and found these aviator glasses. So I didn't bust the budget, and I said, somehow I'm gonna use these. I like the color that it just puts out, well, the reflection. And so 99 cents there. And then what else did I use for my lighting? Well, you could see the $3.99 beauty lights, and I spent $12.59 for some gels on Amazon so I could cover the light. And that's the pink light you see on her hair. That's what that light is from. It's from the $3.99 Studio Beauty Light at the 99-cent store. And it's a pink gel that I bought on Amazon, 12 by 12 sheets. And that's what created that. So the main light was the neon in the window, okay? All right, so here's this shot here, okay? And I'm gonna show how this was done, okay? I love color in the background, and this is a very simple setup. I'm gonna show you both how to do it with constant light and how to do it with very low cost flash. If you went on eBay and you found some, who knows what a Vivitar 285 is. I'll be impressed. Did you guys remember those old flashes? I guess you got to be around the 70s and 80s, but you can find those things for 15 bucks. You could literally do the same shot if you wanted to. So I'm going to show you both ways how to do it. Okay. So one, here's my setup. Okay. So I'm in lighting situation number 3. I'm creating as much darkness in my environment as I can. This would have came out even better if I wasn't on the store floor in B&H Photo doing this demonstration, because there's lights around this whole store that I couldn't turn off. But anyways, so I'm taking a laundry basket, I'm taking my light, and I'm putting a gel over it, and I'm creating a pattern on the left side. Then I'm taking a laundry basket on the other side, shining a light through it to give me that pattern of the red and blue put together creates purple. And so if you use 2 different gels, you're gonna get a red or a pink, purple in the middle, and then a blue on the right. And it's gonna have a very complex lighting situation to it, but you're just using your grade school color mixing skills to do it. And so here's a little video of how it's done. So you can see the pattern that I'm creating. And then I'm using a softbox. So I'm just using a 33-inch softbox. I had to put the gel on the outside, and I couldn't cut the gel, so I had to do that. So I got that pattern on the back wall. And then so this light that I'm using is only 500, oh, is it 15? No, 500. 500 lumens. There's literally any video light in the world can produce 500 lumens. So it's not a lot of light at all, but it's the quality of light. So I'm double diffusing it through that softbox. And then I'm gonna show you, I did it in camera, folks. That's my shot in camera. Okay, so it looks how it was, but you might think, well, yeah, I Photoshopped. But no, that's my in-camera shot right there, okay? Doing this technique with very little type of lighting. And so there it is, edited with smoothing the skin out and all that kind of stuff. So I'm doing the same technique. I'm teaching a class, and I'm like, okay, first of all, I went to Canada, and I didn't want to. Sometimes Canada's weird. They don't like you bring in a lot of stuff. They think that you're, I don't know, making money and doing business, and they pull you aside. So I said, listen, I'm going to go up there. I'll teach you, but I'm not going to bring stuff. I just want my Sony dealer to come and bring stuff, and I'll teach the class. So I'm doing this lighting demonstration. I got 3 different flashes here. Because it's like, okay, what do I got? I'm MacGyvering. Okay, I got this one Godox here. Let's put the other 2 flashes on slave mode. So when the Godox goes off, then these other will fire. So what I'm doing the same thing. With flash, I could be in an environment like this because the light is stronger. I could set my camera exposure to be black. So if I take a pic, so what I'm doing flash, I'm taking to set this up. What is my camera setting? My camera setting is, if I shoot it without any flashes firing it, it has to look pitch black. Get that? So I'm creating a black box, okay? Because none of that ambient light is gonna affect my photo, because when I take a picture without the flash, it's completely black. So I'm eliminating all the ambient light. I hope that makes sense to you. Then I'm taking a flash for the main, and I'm doing something very simple here. I'm saying, I'm just gonna use hard light only, right? And then if you see in the back on top of that speaker, I put a blue gel on that flash, and I found this in the foyer, this in a hotel room. I grabbed those little branches things. I just took it from the foyer, borrowed it. I said, I gotta use this. I put it on the ground. I'm gonna fire that flash through there onto that wall with a blue gel. And this is the shot that I did in literally 2 or 3 shots. If I had a video, I could prove it, because I did all the calculations. I show you how you do it. I have this chart that shows you, like, you set this for here, set that for there. You could do this shot in 1 shot. I did the shot in 1 shot, but I didn't get the pose quite right. So I took about 3 shots, sorry. But I did the lighting all in 1 shot, and this is what I got, okay? So that is the technique, I reversed, of course, the position there. But that's my environment. That's my shot. And so once you start understanding the concepts of light and learning how to color it and learning how to do things, you just feel invincible. You just feel like MacGyver. It's like, hey, just give me anywhere. You know, I don't have it here, but I showed these other photos that I do using actually an iPhone light, which is pretty amazing. It's just understanding light. You don't need a lot. Every single one of photos that I showed you, you can use $20 worth of lighting, okay? Except for the Stella lights, they're kind of expensive, but you can use other lights, okay? And so here's that same technique again, and I'm gonna give you, get your pens and pencils out, because I'm gonna show you the formula, how to do it, and you're gonna be able to do this shot in one shot. So you're gonna write this, so that's the beauty about understanding light and knowing manual, because once you know that this shot produces, this photo is produced by this lighting set up, you could repeat it anywhere. So here is what I did. You got your laundry baskets. You put it 6 feet away from your backdrop, whatever it is. That backdrop that you saw was wood paneling. Okay, I was just doing this at a Sony event, and that was wood paneling behind. That's why you could see the lines up and down, because it's like wood grooves paneling there. That's why you get the highlight and shadow going across there a little bit. And so you set at, here's what you, if you were at F11, so if you were in a super bright area and you had to be at F11 to eliminate all the ambient light, then you would set A, B, and C at 1/2 power. Okay, actually, yeah, because what happens is, so you're trying to get that light to your subject as close as possible. You're only 3 feet away from your subject. So you're thinking, well, Scott, let's see, the backdrop is 6 feet away and you got it at 1/2 power. And then you got your light 3 feet away and you got it at 1/2 power. Why does that work? Well, it's called the inverse square law, and it's called diffuser. The diffuser takes away 2 stops. And so the inverse square law says, if I reduce the distance by 1/2, I gain 2 stops. So if I reduce my lighting by 2 stops, and then instead of 6 feet, I pull it in, what's half the distance of 6 feet? 3 feet. You guys are geniuses, right? And then I put the diffuser on, it's gonna be the same power. Now, these are just very simple flashes you can buy anywhere, okay? They're not anything special. And so there's the setup. You're at F11, okay, I'm gonna put everything on 1/2 power, boom, we're done, right? Or let's say you can go into a situation where you can make the room darker and you can be at F6, 5.6. You don't have to shoot at F11 to make a black box. You're at 5.6. Now you're shooting everything with 1/8 power on a small portable flash. That's all it takes to do this shot, right? Now, let's say you can make it completely dark and you can shoot at F2. You would set all your flashes at 1/64 power. That's why I was able to do this shot with constant light, okay? Now, I want you to remember this. Well, Scott, why don't you just use constant light for everything? Well, in general, constant light, flash is 100 times more powerful than constant light. And so you can't, if you can't buy a $69 constant light and shoot at F11, F16 out in the real world, it's just not gonna work. You're gonna turn that constant light on and you're not even gonna see a difference, you know? So you need a super, super strong light. You gotta spend a lot of money to be able to do that. But if you're on a budget, right? And if you can turn down the light and lower the ambient light and shoot at F2, then you don't need hardly any light at all, and you can do the same thing with flash or with constant light, okay? And so that's why I'm able to do it. And so that's, again, the shot, right? And I actually even did this too because, you know, I speak a lot for Sony and they want me to show the Sony flashes and stuff like that. I had done this exact same setup in TTL and you pretty much get it in one shot. You might have to adjust a couple flashes here and there, but you could do, you don't even have to think. You could just like, okay, I just gotta set everything up in TTL, bam, boom, you got it. Okay, so here, 5. How are we doing on time, by the way? We okay?
So we have about 20 minutes.
Okay, so I'm gonna finish up with these 2 real quick ones. Pool party. I wanna show you something creative, what you can do, right? Beach party. And these, what I love about these Stella lights, and maybe some other lights do it, or you could put the lights in a plastic bag or whatever. I like because they're waterproof. And so you could do more things when they're waterproof. So here I'm in Hawaii teaching a class for Sony, and the waves are coming along and the students are seeing the waves and go, oh my gosh, the lighting. I say, hey, don't worry about that. They're Stella lights. They can handle, they're actually Stella, the company Light in Motion, they started off doing diving lights. So that's why they're so good at doing lights that are waterproof. But these lights range anywhere from 200 to 600 bucks, these 2 that you see on the ground. And I needed some, it was overcast. And I needed, and again, it's light from above. They got shadows because the light is coming high. I need to get some light in there. Okay, let me just put these lights on the ground. Nobody wants to hold the lights for me because they just want to take pictures, right? Okay, fine. I'll put them in the ground here, right? And here's the water going over them, right? And then here's my picture. And you can see the catch lights in her eyes. But it's giving me that highlight and shadow that just makes it gorgeous. And then I'm adding a little bit of, blending a little bit of sky in the background, smoothing out the skin, right? But that starts from that, okay? And then here's another shot that I love doing. And what I did was I actually placed the light, and this is a cool technique that I just discovered. You could put the light in water underneath and create uplight. And because the water is wavy, it's going to create a film noir look on your subjects because the water is going to go back and forth and it's not an even plane of consistent light. And so you're going to get areas of highlight and shadow, and it's going to be constantly moving if you use uplight on it. And so what I did was I used the uplight there to create that romantic film noir feel. And I just took another light in the background, as you can see over there to the right, the light. And I just used that as highlight. And then I just told somebody to splash water. And in order for you to see water or smoke, you have to backlight it or sidelight it. If you, okay, like if you're gonna take, like you knew this when you were a kid. Oh, it's raining outside. I wanna show everybody it's raining. And you take your little Instamatic camera and your flash goes off and you don't see the rain. Why? Because you only see water and smoke if there's backlight or sidelight, and you're using on-camera flash, it just won't work. You can't see it. And so I've got this beautiful backlight. I go, hey, why don't you, and I had this other person just splash some water in back of them to give me that motion look. I'm going to show you a little video next. Oh, that's what I used, the CLX 8000 in the back and the little Stella 1000 underneath for the uplight. Now, I'm going to show you a video here. You guys can't hear the video, right? And I'm going to show you right here that I put it underneath the water on the stairs. So bring them over to the stairs so you can just place the water there. And you can see that, you see that film noir look and how it varies with the shadow. See that? And so you got that duality there, and that's something creative. You know, maybe you could just try putting some lights in a plastic bag or whatever and doing the same thing. It's not a heck of a lot of light down there. Okay, so let's review. We've got nose to the light. I literally got 20 of these tricks I could talk to you about, but time is limited. So these are a few creative portraits that I go over. Got reflection, right? I've got motion, or not reflection, I'm sorry, reflector, motion, I've got, I was going to show how to use reflections, but sorry about that. That'll have to be for next time. But that's reflector number 2, motion, using shadows, 5, using color gels, 5, 6, going into the water and doing some fun stuff. So that's my 6 creative things. Just wanted to, I hope that gave you something that you could get excited about and try. And that's really what was my hope, is to inspire you maybe with just one thing, or give you some insight on doing portraits a little bit better. And I hope that you guys learned something from it. And I just really want to thank you guys for having me come. And that's all my information again. So I'm going to throw this back, if that's okay with you guys. And if you guys have any question about my work or anything like that, I'll be happy to answer anything about my career, how I got started, all that kind of stuff.
So Josh has a question. He says, he's asking what adjustments you've been making with COVID. He says he loves the looks. They're amazing, obviously, but we're just avoiding the studio for the foreseeable future. What adjustments are you making with all of this going on?
Well, obviously for me, I'm mostly an educator. So I just really teach for a living, but I did a few sessions in the garage with my daughters. That was fun. And just trying to, and then I'm doing a lot of Zoom. So I'm using Zoom. I think Zoom is going to be our future. And the more you can incorporate that, do that. I'm not sure about making money with photography, because in general, we have to shoot people. I mean, like, we're a people. I mean, our business is highly social. So if you take that aspect away from, can I be honest with you? When
Please.
COVID first hit, I went into a depression because, one, I thought I was going to lose everything. Because I am the sole financial provider for my family, and I get paid to go and speak and be in front of people and take pictures and call out. So I was getting call after call. Oh, Scott, this event's canceled. You guys were calling me up. Oh, we can't do this anymore. It's like I saw all this money being taken away from me. And I'm like, how am I going to provide for my family? They're depending on me. I got a kid in college. I got another girl in private school. I live in Los Angeles. It's not exactly cheap to live here. And I was going to say, you're kidding me. I am going to lose my whole 20-year career because of this. And I fell in a bit of a depression because I thought I was going to lose it all. And so right now, hey, I'm taking the government handouts and I'm taking whatever because I got to survive, but it really did throw me in. And it made me think actually about creating more digital assets. And so luckily I had been in the process of producing 40 hours of teaching content on composition, posing, lighting, and post-processing. And it gave me a whole few months to just finish that off. Right. And then, so that's another thing. Maybe in this case, if it shuts down like this, start creating some digital content that you can do. Use people that you know. Right. But it's very difficult. I don't know if anybody has any answers, but we just try to make as best as we can and do what we can.
No, I appreciate that answer. I think many of us, if not all of us, at some point have felt similar feelings. But I think the thing that I appreciate about your answer is you looked at it as an opportunity, and you're able to move forward beyond that initial depression and be like, okay, this whole thing is out of my control. So what can I do? And that was great. Jaron has a question. What would you like to see in the future of Sony cameras?
Well, hey, bigger the sensor, the better, right? So I know they up the megapixels, but to me, because they'll go, oh, wow, it's 60 megapixels now. It's going to medium format quality. Yeah, in regards to megapixels, but really it's all about the sensor size that gives you different, and I'm a portrait photographer, and I don't know, I look at these old photos where they're using 8x10 negatives, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like awesome, right? Even back in the day. So
So you want
larger the
you want an
sensor.
8x10 sensor? Is that what you're
Why not? The bigger, I would like to see bigger sensors. I would like to see an 8x10 sensor. Wouldn't that be fun? Oh my gosh.
Awesome. There's one more. Jessica's asking, what keeps you inspired with your photography?
I just love teaching. I mean, I feel like I'm a decent photographer, but I just love trying to educate people on lighting and posing and composition and post processing. And what drives me is finding new thick tech things that I can share with other people. That's really the basis of my drive. It's not like I've won enough awards and I'm a Sony Artisan. It's like, okay, it's not about me anymore. It's about, can I see another? So one of my proudest things was there's only like 40 Sony Artisans across the entire country. So it's pretty hard to do. But I have mentored 2 people to become, or almost a third now, to become Sony Artisans. And so I feel so proud of that when I see my students winning awards, when my students are earning 6 figures and doubling, and I work with them and they instantaneously double their income. All that kind of stuff is my joy, and what drives me is that I feel like I want more and more things that I can add value to my audience and to who I meet. And that's really the why behind what I do. And I find the more and more I do that, the more satisfied I feel inside. And for me creatively, I don't really feel that I'm a great photographer, but I just feel like I'm an excellent educator, because I've been doing this for over 15 years. And every year I feel like I'm growing as a photographer, but also growing as an educator too. And that's what I'm most proud about.
No, and we definitely appreciate that aspect. I mean, great photography, but also a great educator. So there's been a lot of comments about people excited to go back and try some things, especially with you know, the low cost, you know, low budget packs. You know, I mean, there's some really good ideas in there. Um, Going back, someone reminded me about a question from the beginning about a time in your photography. I don't remember the exact question, but when you really felt like it was kind of your breakthrough moment.
Yeah. This is a little bit, I'm going to go a little bit deep here. Before my photography career, I started my photography career at 37. I started really late. I'm 57 now. So I started really late, and up until 37, I was completely lost. I had no idea what to do, where I was, how I fit into this world. I could only make $10,000 a year. My wife is an angel. She had been supporting me for 12 years. She'd been bringing financially sole provider. It switched now, but for 12 years, she was so gracious of me. She knew I had some skills, and she allowed me 12 years to make only $10,000 a year to find myself. And so I finally found photography, and I said, this is it. I know I can do this. I've been waiting my entire life, and I found it. And so one time, and I started out as a wedding photographer, and I was shooting the reception of this couple dancing in the floor. And I was literally in this beautiful wedding venue. And I remember that wedding, I was making $5,000. And I thought, man, just a little while ago, I was making $10,000 a year, and I'm going to make $5,000 on this one wedding that I'm shooting now. And I just felt so overwhelmed, and I'm like, people are hiring me, and I made it. And I felt like, wow, I can provide for my family. I know it sounds like a dumb thing, but for a man just to be able to provide for his family, guys, I think that we're built to do that. You know, we're built to be providers. And I wasn't able to do that for 12 years, the first 12 years of my marriage. And then to say and to do that, that was the most rewarding thing to me. And one thing led to another. And then I started shooting $10,000 weddings, $20,000 weddings. And I'm getting flown all around the world to shoot weddings and then develop my teaching career. And then all through that. But I still, to this day, remember that time and seeing that couple dance in that middle of that beautiful wedding venue and just picturing myself, how did I get here? Because before have you guys ever hit rock bottom before? I was at rock bottom just a few years before that, wondering if I should even belong on this earth. And then to see myself go from there to find photography. And that's why I am so enthusiastic to teach photography, because photography literally saved my life. And if I know it can for other people too, because it could be a great career. And that's why I want to teach it, because there may be some of you who maybe you're at rock bottom right now. I don't know, right? And I know what photography did for me and how it created a great career for me, and I know it can for others.
Thank you, Scott, for your vulnerability and sharing that with us. I appreciate your influence there and everything that you taught us. One last question before we
Sure, just
what are
whatever.
Where can people go to see your trainings, your video trainings that you're doing?
Okay, I have this huge marketing company approached me and said, Scott, do you guys know who Joel Grimes is? He's a pretty famous Latin guy. If you ever see any of Joel Grimes' stuff advertised, that's the same company that's managing me. And so they said, Scott, we need you to create 40 hours. We're going to bust it out. We're going to create a whole new website for you. We're going to rebrand you. We're going to do everything. We're going to, all your fans are going to get emails on Facebook, Instagram. Everybody's going to know about you. They're spending a whole bunch of money. So I just completed the 40 hours. Okay. And so now they're going to take 2 months to put my website together, to, put everything online. It's almost like my own Creative Live channel. And then they're going to be busting out and giving the free course. And the free course is going to be the lighting hacks, going out and shooting on a dollar store budget video. And then you're going to be able to buy all my courses from there. But if you just follow me on Facebook or follow me on Instagram, I am for sure that you're going to see it. And so that's going to probably be in a couple months.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And thank you, Sony, for bringing him on and for the great work that you're doing there. All right. So we're going to go over the winners for the drawing for the backpack. One back. Sorry. Brett, there you go. You get the Think Tank photo cross bag.
And guess what? You won't be able to find that at the 99-cent store either.
That's very true.
I can put my 99-cent lights in it though.
Yeah, we should have put those in the swag bag.
We can sneak them in still.
Scott, can you put that in for me, please?
You got it.
I'll promote you.
Okay. I mean, once this gets out, they're not going to have those lights anywhere anymore.
That's right. They're sold out already.
All right, then we have a couple of the swag bags to give away. First winner, there you go, Justin. And then the second, Deanna or Diana. Sorry, I'm not sure which one, but either way, there you go, and we'll ship those out to you guys.
Nice.
So be sure to come back for Jonathan in just a little bit, and just so everyone's aware, we're going to be doing a group photo still. So tomorrow, after the second presentation, make sure to get all dressed up and do your hair, and we're going to do a big Zoom group photo. So just a heads up and prepare for that. And yeah, we'll see everybody in about a half hour for the next session.